All right, so we're back. We're going to cover the wide receivers and tight ends that we feel are potential targets on the waiver wire or free agent pool right now. Some of you guys don't have to even put a waiver claim in. No. In a lot of leagues, these guys are free agents. Simple add, drop, and you don't have to give up a waiver claim. So we're going to start with the wide receivers. First wide receiver we've identified here, again, in really no particular order, but that would be wide receiver DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks, the rookie wide receiver. This is a kid that a lot of experts felt was the best wide receiver coming out of the draft. He's an absolute monster. He's your prototypical big-bodied receiver, strong, athletic, has that ability to win those 50-50 balls and just out-muscle defenders. Mm-hmm. And the big thing really with Metcalf is that Seattle doesn't have that. Right. I mean, obviously they're number one this year, going to be Tyler Lockett. I mean, I think he's literally the only wide receiver left on the roster. Right. But big news for DK Metcalf. He suffered the injury, but he's getting healthy, and they just cut Jaron Brown, who, again, I know that doesn't seem like much, but the fact that they would cut him, leaving essentially Lockett and really DK Metcalf as really the only thing left just speaks volume. So I don't know how many waiver wires he's on right now or how many leagues where people were sleeping on him, but if he's out there, he's certainly a guy we would prioritize. And your thoughts as to why this kid is somebody that people should be grabbing if he's out there.
As you said, he's big, physical, just a monster. I read the other day, he's like Josh Gordon, if Josh Gordon didn't do drugs, right?
You take drugs, Danny? Every day. Good.
So he's basically...
Love you, Josh.
He's Josh Gordon without the drugs, which is everybody's dream. So, no, he's that physical.
So he's less fun?
He's less fun. I mean, you wouldn't want to hang out with DK Metcalf. But he's going to be back most likely by week 1. They cut... Jaron Brown, I mean, that speaks volumes about, because they don't really have many receivers. And Russell Wilson can get the ball to people. He can move around. He can create time with his legs. And this guy is going to be a red zone machine. Yep. He's a deep threat. He's just if you look at Lockett's like a T.Y. Hilton, the little guy that, it's hard to be a number one when you're that little. And then you got a monster on the other side that he can just throw it up. And Russell Wilson would love to know that if I throw it up, this guy's not going to let it get picked. He's either coming down or nobody's coming down with it. I think that DK Metcalf's probably not on many of your free agent wires, but I saw him going very, very late. In some leagues, he was available. All right. So I like him a lot, especially in a standard league over a PPR, but I like him as like a 4th or 5th receiver for sure.
Absolutely, in a standard league. And, one of the, just looking at the draft board here, a guy that he could turn into this year is Mike Williams from last year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could see a double-digit type touchdown season where, again, maybe the receptions, the yards aren't going to necessarily blow you away, but because of his ability in the red zone, and the fact that you don't really see many other options for Russell Wilson when they get down there. So, absolutely. We know Seattle is going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to play defense. But obviously, you're going to have times where you can't run the ball in from the goal line. And so a nice option is just chuck it up to your 6-foot guy and let him go get it.
6 foot, like 6'5",
right? I mean,
nobody can keep up with him in the red zone.
So. Yeah, and if you're in a dynasty league,
he's definitely
certainly. If he's on your waivers in a dynasty league,
and remember the Chargers have Hunter Henry, they have Keenan Allen. Right. What do they have in Seattle, especially in the red zone? Tyler Lockett doesn't exist in the red zone, so this is your only guy. Disley, this is the guy. So. Right. DK Metcalf, definitely somebody not to sleep on. If he's available, I would definitely jump on him and drop your whatever you have that's kind of expendable.
Absolutely. Another guy that we've identified that we have seen either going very, very late or obviously could be out there on waivers or in the free agent pool is wide receiver John Brown of the Buffalo Bills. John Brown gets no love. I mean, the poor guy, obviously, look, when he was with Arizona, he flashed. We saw what he could be, that potential to just take it to the house, take the top off the defense, have that huge reception. And then, of course, he got injured, suffered through the sickle cell thing and kind of became a forgotten man. Then going into last year, he was kind of a late round guy that some people took the stab on. And at the beginning of the year, he was in Baltimore, of course, he paid off handsomely.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, I believe he was a top 10 type wide receiver, with Flacco at quarterback. Of course, when Lamar Jackson took over, that all ended, which, of course, makes sense since Lamar Jackson doesn't know how to throw an NFL pass. Now he finds himself in Buffalo, which, yes, there are some other, there's some other options in that passing game. But I think the big thing about John Brown and Buffalo is Josh Allen has a huge arm.
He's got a cannon. Yeah.
So he's now back with a quarterback who has the big arm. Yeah. So give us some of your thoughts on John Brown. Do you feel, that he's a guy that owners should be paying more attention to?
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody in Buffalo. I mean, Zay Jones. Who do they really have at receiver? They don't have a tight end anymore.
They have more. What's the old expression? They have quantity over quality.
I don't even know. Yeah, so I'm just gonna say John Brown, if he stays healthy, is the #1 receiver in Buffalo. He really is compatible with Josh Allen's cannon of an arm. It's not as extremely accurate, but you just throw deep and let John Brown run underneath it, catch it. Reminds me of like a D-Jax in his prime. If he stays healthy, I mean, he is that talented. So I like John Brown as a guy to go pick up in your waiver wire, throw on your bench in place of somebody that's just blah at whatever position.
All right, another guy, getting back to the wide receivers that we've identified. Final one is wide receiver, I think it's DJ Shark. So we got a Chark.
C-H-A-R-K. I've never heard of it.
So we got a DK and a DJ. DJ Chark, wide receiver, Jacksonville Jaguars. A guy that picked up a lot of buzz at one point and then just all of a sudden kind of the buzz fell off. I understand the love of Westbrook and I understand why, owners had prioritized Westbrook. But there's reason to believe that DJ Chark could be of value this year as well. So give us...
Yeah, well, they were talking about, as you said, a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, he was the talk of the town. Everybody was like, go out and get him, prioritize. And now he's not being drafted. I haven't seen him drafted once, literally. In all my drafts, I haven't seen him go once. So, yeah, there's DD, and there's Marquise Lee, and there's, all these different... I don't know. I've heard about Westbrook and Lee for many years. Yes, Foles is coming in. He should be better at quarterback. But this is a guy who's a speedster like John Brown who could take the top off the defense. And he had a lot of hype, but now he doesn't. So it's like a post-hype guy that you can get cheap, stash him, watch him for a couple weeks. If he doesn't pan out, you drop him. But he's a guy, I mean, I'm much more excited about John Brown and DK Metcalf. But this is a guy that is a deep sleeper. You have a deep bench, and you're short at receiver, and you want to take a shot on somebody that's free. That's definitely going to be there for you. Take a shot on him, or just keep an eye on him. Keep him on your way. I was going to
say deep bench, or like a 16-team league. If not, just more guy definitely to keep an eye on.
He's the only guy I heard all preseason that didn't get drafted. That was just talked about to exhaustion, and I'm like, wait a minute. He didn't get drafted anywhere? Like, what happened to him?
Right.
So, yeah. We'll see.
And he's a guy like, for example, let's say you're in a position where you took Moncrief, and by week 2 or week 3, James Washington, it turns out, takes that number 2 role. So he's a guy, certainly keep an eye on him because he may be able to, help replace a guy that you took that's not going to deliver much value. All right, so those are the 3 wide receivers that we've identified that might be out there on waivers or free agents that are worth taking a look at. Tight end position, got a couple guys that have gone either very late in drafts or non-drafted, which means, of course, they would be on a lot of different waivers and free agent pools. First guy is, and we touched on him a little bit when we talked about DK Metcalf, and that is tight end Will Dissly for the Seattle Seahawks. Big Montana, I believe, is what he's also known as. Will Dissly. So last year, not only did not go drafted, I don't think there was anybody in the fantasy world who even spoke the words Will Dissly. I mean, he was that off the radar. He was an afterthought. Comes in first couple weeks. You have some. I think you pulled up the stats. I mean, I know his first 2 games. Remind me, it was
six catches, 150. 2 touchdowns in 2 weeks.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
This year he had season-ending surgery in week 4, so he didn't get a chance to continue that pace. But now he's only got Lockett and Metcalf, and they're on the outside, and he's on the inside. We know that Russell Wilson has a great arm. We know he's accurate. We know he makes a lot of plays with his legs. He extends the play. He needs a first down, 3rd and 7. He throws it to Disley over the middle. It's easy to see how this guy can get a lot of targets,
Absolutely.
a lot of catches. And, he had 2 touchdowns in 2 games. So if he could do half that pace and wind up with 6 to 8 touchdowns, that's not too bad either. So he's a guy that I think is just a deep tight end. I saw a lot of people taking tight ends like Tyler Eifert and Jordan Reed and different guys that every single year get hurt, do the same thing. This is a guy, he's a younger guy. He's on an offense that doesn't have many weapons. I think he's an easy guy to throw in there if you have a very weak second tight end, or if you want a third one,
right,
and you could start 2. You take a shot on Will Disley.
Absolutely. Next guy that we identified is he may be buzzy to the point where he's not going to be out there on a lot of waiver wires, but that's tight end Darren Waller of the Oakland Raiders. Of course, big thing with Darren Waller is you don't have to look. Last year, of course, what Jared Cook did in that offense, how much it appears John Gruden's offense does like to, involve the tight end. And the kid's got a great story, which not that plays into fantasy, but if you've been watching Hard Knocks, he dealt with alcohol and kind of drug issues similar to Josh Gordon. And kind of was out of the NFL for a couple of years, and now he's back. And everything out of camp is saying that this kid is I don't want to say unguardable, but I mean, in one of the episodes of Hard Knocks, they asked some of the offensive guys, who's the MVP? Who's going to be the MVP that nobody is talking about? They all said Darren Waller, Darren Waller, Darren Waller. So he's got the job. We saw last year with Cook. So everything there's a lot of reasons to believe that he could be something, I don't want to say, maybe even something special.
Well, isn't that special?
Maybe even something special.
He's definitely a guy. I don't know if he's out there on your free agent wires, depending if you have a short bench, big bench, if you went 16 rounds, 18 rounds. But you have 70 catches, 900 yards, and 6 touchdowns is what Jared Cook did last year with Derek Carr. So that's a lot of production that needs to be eaten up by somebody. So Darren Waller can get 60 catches, 800 yards, and 5 touchdowns for where he's going, or potentially on the free agent wire. He's definitely somebody to target if you're hurting a tight end, no doubt about it.
Right, and I think that's the big thing with him, though, is that, obviously it's easy to say this is what Cook did last year, but we also know the offense is a lot different this year. I mean, I believe they added a guy in free agency, a wide receiver that, is
Antonio Brown. Okay. But I mean, to be honest with you, without wide receivers, there would be more attention on Jared Cook last year. Now there will be less attention because now the safety has to watch, Antonio Brown, and you have Tyrell Williams who could take the top off the defense. So the middle of the field is there for the taking, and Derek Carr is going to be looking that way, and they're going to be throwing a lot.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing, right? Absolutely. It's funny, when we were doing our running backs, I even thought about maybe even throwing out Jalen Richard, and that was mainly because of, like we talked about with Tampa Bay, good offense, what appears to be a good offense with a offensive-minded guy, calling the shots. You got Arians at Tampa Bay, Gruden in Oakland, with a defense that does not appear on paper to be very good, which means shootouts or a lot of, obviously a need to put up a lot of points. So absolutely, why we like a guy like Darren Waller is not just his talent, but also what appears to be a whole season of a need to put up a lot of points.
Absolutely.
So you always love that, obviously, especially in PPR. So Darren Waller, certainly a guy, if he happens to be out there and you don't like your number 2 tight end, or even you're a little bit, you did wait on tight end.
Some people have horrible first tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. If you waited, maybe you came away with Jordan Reed, or you came.
Retire, Jordan.
We could just do like a whole segment on your thoughts on Jordan Reed. But all right, so another young guy that's started to pick up some buzz at the tight end position, and we certainly see it as well. It makes sense, and that is tight end Noah Fant, Denver Broncos. This kid is, your typical, very athletic, wide reception-based type tight end. I think that's kind of the concern right now is blocking and all that stuff is not exactly his expertise. But, you look at the Denver offense, and outside of Emmanuel Sanders, you've got two young guys that still remain a little bit unproven in Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton. And more importantly, I think, is you have a quarterback in Joe Flacco who has certainly had some tight ends in the past that he's made very fantasy relevant.
100%.
So talk a little bit about Noah Fant and why you feel Joe Flacco might make this kid fantasy relevant.
Yeah, so as you touched on, he's a receiving tight end. He's not a blocker. He's out of Iowa with his fellow rookie, both first-round picks. Hockenson. It's just crazy. Like two guys from the same college going in the first round. I've never heard of that. Never probably will see that again. Good-sized kid. He's like 6'4", 250. And Todd Heap and Dennis Pitta were two guys that were made into all-pro tight ends from Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco loves to lean on his tight ends. He's going to have Sutton on one side, Emmanuel Sanders on the other. So I think that's going to give him the middle of the field for Fant. I think Fant has first-year tight ends have a hard time in the NFL. It's a very tough position to learn, usually because you got to learn how to block.
Right.
But if he's not going to be blocking, he's going to be more of a third receiver, then I think his learning curve will be accelerated. Whereas Hawkinson's in Detroit behind Jesse James, that could take him a little bit of time to get there. So we'll see, but I definitely think that Noah Fant is a guy, if he's available, run out and grab him. If he's not, he's definitely a guy to try to get from somebody if they have a need that you have excess of. But Noah Fant, I think, is one of those few rookies that could make a decent impact, unlike your boy Gesicki in Miami last year.
My boy. Yeah, no, listen, we're certainly not saying to run out and prioritize making Noah Fant your number one tight end. It's going to take some time, most likely, but certainly somebody that if you have the roster spot, you want to stash him away. Simply, again, because like you said, with Joe Flacco, his history with tight ends. And
if he has a slow start, because rookie tight ends typically do have a slow start, that guy that has them may drop him.
Right.
If it's not a keeper league, especially. And if he doesn't drop him, he may just be expendable.
Right.
Where you say, hey, man, I'm really hurting a tight end. I mean, do you have anybody? And then the guy comes back to you, well, I got this guy, Noah Fant. He hasn't been that great. He's a rookie. They're not that good. Well, what do you want for him? And then just, try to buy him real low. Right. But that's something you could probably do if he has a slow start to the season.
Absolutely. 'Cause, and especially, again, the Denver offense is just probably one of the more difficult to predict offenses in the NFL this year.
I think it's going to be better than we think.
Yeah, right. It's just about...
I think Flacco needed a new address, and he needed John Elway to tutor him, and he needed better receivers, which he's never really had receivers. He's had a tight end here and there, but he's never had receivers in Baltimore.
Right.
So he's got two or three, and he's got the rookie.
Joe Flacco has one of the better arms in the NFL.
He's got a monster
arm. His arm is no joke. So if finally he's got the receivers to make defenses respect the fact that Flacco has the big arm and obviously can take the top off us.
Yeah. Right.
It should open up the middle of the field, and so having a dynamic, athletic tight end, you could certainly again see why Noah Fant could be a name that obviously is going to. Everybody's going to know by week 6, week 7, somewhere in there. He might be that name. So again, if you have the opportunity to grab him before everybody else in your league is aware, go out and get him. Final guy we're going to talk about is a name that obviously a lot of people know, but has not been getting a lot of love. I kind of feel like he wasn't getting love even before the Andrew Luck retirement. And he's still, of course, not getting any love. And that is tight end Jack Doyle, Indianapolis Colts. Maybe it's because of the season that Ebron had last year, but maybe people are forgetting Ebron's season was all about touchdowns. If you're in a PPR and you're looking for a tight end who you can maybe hopefully count on going out there, having that floor of 4 to 5 receptions, somewhere in that range, and just feeling nice and safe about what you're putting out there, Jack Doyle might be that guy. Your thoughts on your boy Jack Doyle?
Yeah, Jack Doyle, I mean, I wasn't as excited about him as I am now that Luck's not there. In his season in 2017 with Brissett, 80 catches. Think about that for a second. Who catches 80 balls at tight end? 80 catches, 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. That was with Brissett. So Brissett loves this guy. Brissett just got a 2-year contract extension, $30 million, 20 of which is guaranteed. Yes, Ebron's there. Yes, we now have Funchess, Campbell, different people. But at the end of the day, the outside receivers, Funchess and Hilton, Ebron, you still got him in the middle. And if Brissett is comfortable throwing to him, which he obviously was, this guy is 6'6", 260 pounds. I mean, he's like Gronk.
All right.
He's a big Gronk. He's got great hands like Gronk. And I think that this guy is being very underrated because he had 1 year injury. Once again, 1 year injury. Chris Thompson, we talked about him in the running back segment. Everybody overreacts. Oh, God, he's a bum. It's just 1 year.
Right.
You know, he's still young. He's 29. I think he's got a good year in him, and I think that Brissett's going to feed the tight ends more than he is the receivers. I don't think he wants to make the sideline throws as much as he wants to just move around a little and then gun it to those tight ends in the middle of the field. So I think that Doyle, with his rapport, will have a decent season and is cheap, free, probably available on your free agent wire.
Right.
Once again, if you're sitting there with just an Eifert or Jordan Reed and you're like, oh God, these guys are hurt every year, well then take a guy he's had one injury, you know, so.
Yeah, that, and also a guy that, you know, is look, the Colts defense, they made, you know, they made some strides, but they're still nowhere near an elite defense.
Oh, no.
And the fact that the offense may not be able to put up a lot of points, you know, the way an Andrew Luck-led offense, you could certainly see, again, plenty of game scripts where they are trailing or, you know, needing to throw deep into games. That's what you're always looking for, especially when it comes to a reception-based tight end where you have the proof that you need, that the chemistry's there. We don't have to look far. 80 receptions. Come on, in a PPR, people. I mean, like,
yeah, it's huge. And
that
the year before that, he had 60 catches, 600 yards, and he had he had 5 touchdowns. Right. So in 2 years, that's a lot of numbers right there. I mean, people
are absolutely sleeping on Jack Doyle. I mean, I'm seeing drafts where like Trey Burton's going before him and stuff. And give me Jack Doyle.
Yeah, give me Jack Doyle. I mean, I know Ebron wasn't there the years, the 16, 17, but at the same time, there were other receivers that were there, so let's give him a shot. He's healthy. He's, you know, like I said, he's
free. And that's the main thing. I mean, he right now, if you're able to,
gone and there's too many balls, there's not enough balls to go around. There's too many targets. Then you could drop him.
Right, absolutely. All right, so that wraps up our wide receivers and tight ends.
Championship.